And this is a Fox News alert. You're looking live at the White House, where the president right now is meeting with the House Majority Leader John Boehner and the Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, and just a last-minute attempt now to prevent a government shutdown from happening this Friday at midnight. Meanwhile, a brand-new battle is shaping up over the fiscal year 2012 budget. Now, yesterday, Congressman Paul Ryan unveiled the House Republican fiscal plan. Now, the blueprint is aimed at curbing Washington's out-of-control spending spree. But, of course, Democrats, they're not interested in reducing the deficit. So, as a result, they are resorting to their predictable scare tactics in an effort to turn public opinion against Ryan's plan. Even before hearing all the details, this is what former Speaker Nancy Pelosi had to say about the proposal.
One of the bills before us, 6 million seniors are deprived of meals. Homebound seniors are deprived of meals. People ask us to find our common ground, the middle ground. Is middle ground 3 million seniors not receiving meals? I don't think so.
And former President Bill Clinton released a statement regarding the GOP's efforts to defund Planned Parenthood, saying in part, quote, "The assault on Planned Parenthood is unjustified. The denial of simple birth control and family planning services may well increase both the number of unintended pregnancies and abortions in our country." Scare tactics just like this have been the Democrats' favorite tool now for decades. After all, this is exactly how they attacked President Reagan's nomination for the Supreme Court. Remember this about Judge nominee Robert Bork.
Robert Bork's America is a land in which women would be forced into back alley abortions, blacks would sit at segregated lunch counters, rogue police could break down citizens' doors in midnight raids, and school children could not be taught about evolution. Writers and artists would be censured at the whim of government.
So the question now is, will the left's efforts to smear the GOP budget plan succeed just as they did in derailing the Bork nomination? Joining me now with analysis, the author of the bestseller Courage and Consequence, Fox News contributor, the one and only Karl Rove is back with us. Karl, welcome back.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for having me.
All right, why don't we get you first your analysis. Let's talk about the 2011 budget. They're now meeting at the White House. Last-ditch effort. Republicans only want $61 billion in cuts. Does not seem like a lot of money to me.
Yeah. Look, I've got a piece in tomorrow's Wall Street Journal about this. I'm convinced after the Monday meeting in which the president went out and in the White House press briefing room and said, scolded Congress, saying you could have done this 3 months ago, that he wants a shutdown. I mean, this could have been done 6 months ago, should have been done 6 months ago, before the beginning of the fiscal year. We are 6 months and 6 days into the fiscal year without a budget, and the responsibility for the failure of our government to have a budget in place is one man's responsibility, the President of the United States. It was his budget and his party that dominated Congress last year, where they could have passed it with plenty of votes to spare before the October 1 start date. And the fact they didn't is the president's responsibility. And I've become convinced after his performance on Monday, added to the, making Joe Biden his negotiator and then sending him off on a foreign trip, that he wants a shutdown. Not because he thinks it will defeat the Republicans, but because he and his people have looked at the experience of Bill Clinton in '95 and '96 and concluded it helped him politically to have this kind of a fight.
All right, so if this now then is therefore a political strategy,
Sure.
I don't think this is the same environment that we had back in 1995. I think the country's very conscious of how dangerous the debt now is, especially after 2.5 years of Obama.
Yeah. I agree with you. Different time, different place. But remember this. In June of '95, Clinton was seen by 37% of the American people as a strong leader. In January of '96, after the shutdown, 53% saw him as a strong leader. Obama was at 70% plus, 72 or 73% saw him as a strong leader in April of '09. A year ago, June, he was at 60%. Last month, he was at 52%. He is desperate to stop that slide, and so he's looking for anything. And, if he was serious about avoiding a shutdown, he would have done what he should have done as president last year and gotten a budget. If he was serious about it this year, he would have been deeply engaged rather than doing what he did on Monday, which is to say, I'm here to help you guys. You guys figure it out, and I'm here to do whatever I can to facilitate it.
Well, Karl,
pathetic.
There's been no shortage of opportunities for him to show the world that he's a strong leader, but he's punting in the Middle East. He presented his budget. He didn't deal with Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid, even though he said we must deal with it to get a budget in balance. He's the guy that said we'd cut the deficit in half. Why, if he really wanted an opportunity to lead, why didn't he lead the way with the budget?
Well, maybe because he does, look, is it incompetence or indifference? Either one's bad. But the fact of the matter is he hasn't, and I think this is all now pure politics. If we avoid a shutdown, it will be because John Boehner and Harry Reid came to something that can pass the Republican House and the Democrat Senate, and not because the President of the United States has done anything. Think about it. He was up having dinner with Al Sharpton in New York. That was more important than staying here in Washington in order to arrive at a budget agreement. I mean, it was more important for Vice President Biden to go to Helsinki, St. Petersburg, and Moscow than it was to stay here and do the job that the president assigned him, which was to negotiate a settlement to the budget dispute.
Yeah, but you know something, as of now, polls show that the public is going to blame the president and the Democrats more for the shutdown, especially when you analyze this budget should have been passed by them with their huge majorities and the White House back in October. And I'm having a hard time understanding how they have concluded, and maybe they did polling, but I don't know where the polls back up or support what their position is. I don't know where they see they're going to benefit politically here.
Yeah, well, look, I don't ask me to defend what they're trying to do, but I would think that they may. The president's language on Monday was he scolded Congress, saying you should have done this 3 months ago. In a way, he's almost Clintonian in his triangulation. It wasn't the Republicans even in Congress. He was scolding the Democrats and the Republicans. So I think he was trying to put himself on a different plane of existence. Now, is this going to work? I don't know. We'll see. I do think this is an attempt on his part, a gambit, if you will, to make himself look like a strong leader.
Yeah. How important is it, and I brought this up with Kevin McCarthy, Congressman McCarthy. And by the way, a poll out today, 2-to-1 Americans trust the Tea Party more than they do Congress. Interesting poll. But how important is it, as they deal with the 2011 budget, this pending shutdown Friday night, how important is it that the Republicans stick to their promises that they made in their pledge to America?
Yeah, I think it's very important, but let's also remember they only control 1/3 of the process here. They control the House, they don't control the Senate, and they obviously don't control the Oval Office, the White House. So they've got to press as hard as they can, get as strong a thing as possible. But at the end of the day, we've got to continue to make progress on this.
Last question, though, but you agree with me, they can't be held hostage, to use a term, by the Democrats threatening to shut down the government every time they want to be fiscally responsible, because Paul Ryan's budget is serious. $6.2 trillion is significant, real cuts that I think we need desperately right now. So
absolutely. Absolutely. I hope we can talk more about Paul Ryan, because I got to tell you, this is what my piece is mostly about tomorrow. This was a courageous act of leadership, and the contrast between the petulant, arrogant president of the United States saying, "Oh, you guys should have gotten this done," and Paul Ryan calmly and thoughtfully outlining a plan to save our country from going over the fiscal edge was a pretty strong contrast this week.
All right, we'll read the column in the Wall Street Journal tomorrow, and Carl Rove, the architect, thanks for being with us. By the way, I will be debating Al Sharpton tomorrow night, 6 Eastern. I think we're going to stream it on Hannity.com if you ever want to see it, and it'll be up there on our archives. And coming up, we're continuing to monitor the events out of the White House tonight, and we are awaiting possible remarks from Speaker Boehner and Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid after the meeting, and we're going to bring that to you live and much more straight ahead. And this is a Fox News alert. You are looking live at the White House, where the president is meeting right now with Speaker of the House John Boehner and Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid to try and reach a compromise and prevent the looming government shutdown. We're expected to hear remarks following the meeting, and we will bring those to you live. And joining us now, Fox News contributor, the one and only Monica Crowley, nationally syndicated radio talk show host, and from the Fox Business Network, Sandra Smith is here. You know, it's interesting. First, Democrats are raising money off the shutdown. You heard about this earlier tonight. And secondly, we have, Congressman Mark Pryor comparing the bipartisan budget gang of 6 negotiators to British air forces protecting their country against Nazi Germany, trying to do what's right for their country. This is getting a little out of control.
Well, every year the budget discussion is politicized anyway, just by the nature of appropriations and that kind of thing. But the Democrats have really taken the politicization of this budget to whole new extremes here. And what they think is that they can try to recreate 1995, where for the most part Democrats did get an advantage from the government shutdown. They think that they can recreate those circumstances today, and that's why they're politicizing this so much. But what they don't realize is that the context this time is completely different.
You see, I agree with everything Monica's saying here. It seems like 2010 came and went, and they demonized the Tea Party movement and town hall attendees. And guess what? We had the biggest midterm election loss in 70 years, a repudiation and a rejection of all of Obama's policies. what is the psychology behind this? Are they misreading the mood of the country?
Either the president's ignoring it, he doesn't remember it, or he just doesn't get it, is the only assumption that you can make from that. But, this was really the president's, he's had, as you said earlier in the show, several opportunities to shine here. I mean, the fact that we're waiting on this meeting that's going on right now, he calls this evening, he rushes back from what was he doing today?
Al Sharpton.
I mean, he was in New York.
I'm debating Sharpton tomorrow. I should have been there today to debating Sharpton. I could have met the president.
We're on the verge of
I'd
a
ask him to
government
come on the
shutdown.
show. He refuses by every invitation, because he doesn't want to answer tough questions, Monica, I guess.
Well, you know what? Here's the absurdity of this, and this whole conversation is the theater of the absurd. They're talking about basically a spit in the ocean, right? We're talking about
a pebble.
some $1 billion here, $1 billion there. Out of a $3.7 trillion annual budget, we're running annual deficits of $1.6 trillion. This president has added $4 trillion to the national debt since he's been in office.
Let me go off Carl's theory here for just a second. The numbers speak for themselves, as you say. But, I think they have made a political calculation because they had to pass this back in October. Then, okay, let's say they didn't want to do it before the election for political reasons. Give me a reason why they didn't do it after the election, considering, otherwise it's a dereliction of duty as far as I'm concerned by the Democrats. That's their job. That's what they're supposed to do. They had both houses. They had plenty of time to do it. Did they make a political calculation way back when that they were going to try and define the Republicans as extreme, to quote Chuck Schumer?
So that's why So then we come to a heads, and then they can show that they can say, no, we're going to stick to what we want, $33 billion, and that's it, even though it's $7 billion off of the $40 billion in cuts that the Republicans are asking for. It's a showdown. The Republicans now, they have to stand firm because this is going to set the tone for 2012.
Yeah, see, I think this is key. I think they've got to stand firm. And what's interesting to me is first of all, it's developing into the perfect Mondale, Jimmy Carter, Reagan, Jimmy Carter, Reagan, Mondale classic conservatism, liberty, opportunity society versus a nanny state. And I think the country right now is fed up with everything that's happened under Obama.
And look at the results of the November elections. It tells you exactly where the vast majority of the American people really are. Look at what happened in November. There was already a national commentary, a national verdict on the 4 years of Democratic congressional leadership and 2 years of Obama's far-left leadership. And the verdict was, we don't want this. The government is spending too much. We need to have a discussion now about the proper size and role of government. That's what Paul Ryan's budget document was all about yesterday.
I agree. Well, what do you make of, Sandra, the president lashing out, petulant, arrogant, last minute, comes in here as if this is a burden to him, and wow, why do I have to deal with this? And
well, I think the American people, they get it. I mean, they sent a very clear message in the midterm elections last year. They know what they told the government. They know that they said stop the spending. And yet today, going back to the fact that the president was parading around in Pennsylvania and New York today, pushing for more spending when we're on the verge of a government shutdown. I mean, everybody at home is being asked to cut back. I mean, with home values low and unemployment high, they're cutting back, and they see their government not willing to do that. Meanwhile, our U.S. dollar is just, it's shrinking to nothing.
It's fascinating to me if you look at, how Chris Christie is perceived, how Marco Rubio is perceived, Bob McDonnell in Virginia, Bobby Jindal, and Paul Ryan. How many liberals in today's newspapers around the country, even two in the Washington Post, praising him for being bold and courageous and tough. When I think of President Obama, on Libya, on Mubarak and Egypt and the Middle East, he's timid.
Yeah,
he's weak.
The adjective that I would use to describe, and you used some great adjectives there on Chris Christie and Paul Ryan and the others, but the real word is authenticity. They are all authentic. And when you look at the president, his heart doesn't look like it's in the Libya operation. His heart's clearly not in the budget conversations. Even the Democrats have been saying he's given us no backup. He's been completely detached from this entire process. And now the Democrats are running around with their hair on fire, as is the president, once again, because they didn't do their job last year.
Perceptions are hard to shift. And the president has boxed himself in, Sandra, as weak. We only got about 20 seconds.
Yeah, you know where the next conversation is going to go and where it needs to go is raising the debt ceiling. Tim Geithner says it's going to be catastrophic if we don't do it. Guess what? It's going to be catastrophic if we do it. We're already in a bad situation.
Very well said, both of you. This is a fascinating time. This is a great debate. I think the country needs to have it, and Republicans need to use this as a moment to educate people about limited government, Constitution, the role of government.
Oh, that's radical, Sean.
That's radical, yeah. All right. And coming up, Michelle Malkin is here to give us her take on the looming government shutdown. She explains why she thinks the Democrats are nothing but a bunch of fat cat hypocrites. Plus, we are monitoring the emergency budget meeting. It's happening right now at the White House with Speaker of the House, John Boehner, House Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, and the president himself, who flew back in after going to Al Sharpton's event.